My son died. What a sad mother-in-law's voice. He died. Why? I was supposed to have a wedding greeting today, but I can't wrap my head around it because of the suddenness. So please don't contact me anymore from now on, then. My mother-in-law ignored my request and hung up on me. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I got dressed and left the room. We need to confirm the authenticity as soon as possible. For the sake of this child who is in my belly. My name is Janet. 29 years old, and I work as an office worker. I have a boyfriend named Aaron who I'm dating on the premise of marriage. We got to know each other at a party where we participated in a group of people. He was intelligent, humorous, and had similar hobbies, and we hit it off on the day we met, and we started dating soon after. It's a secret that we met at a joint party. My parents are hard-headed, so just tell them we met through a mutual friend. He and I must have been a good match. It didn't take long for us to think about our future, and by the time we had been dating for half a year, we naturally started talking about marriage, and I was soon introduced to his family. Dad, Mom, this is Janet, and we've been dating on the premise of marriage. His family is close, and he kindly invited me into this circle. As soon as we started dating, I found out that his parents were quite wealthy, and he was a so-called rich kid. He grew up in a very different environment and came from a very different family. I was worried about whether his family would accept me, but my parents-in-law welcomed me with open arms. My father-in-law is still busy working as a surgeon, and my mother-in-law is still busy working as a nurse. My father-in-law seemed to be mild-mannered, and my mother-in-law was somewhat difficult to get along with, which was my impression at first. So, it was my mother-in-law who talked to me and relieved my tension, which I thought was difficult to get along with. Janet, what kind of work do your parents do? As asked, I talked about various things with them. I lost my beloved father in an accident when I was in elementary school. Since then, I have been living with my mother with the support of relatives. In particular, my paternal grandparents took great care of me, and we are still very close. I have been able to live comfortably in a single-mother family thanks to my mother and all my relatives. My parents-in-law, and he listened to me seriously. I see. I'm sorry for asking you a lot. You've been through a lot. I look forward to getting to know you more in the future. When my mother-in-law heard about my upbringing, she smiled and said, "Let's get along." I'm honestly glad that his parents say that. Since then, I have been invited by him to visit his parents' house many times. Every time I saw them, we got to know each other more deeply and became closer and closer. One day, I felt an indescribable physical ailment. My whole body is sluggish and I feel very sleepy. I have chills and headaches. Furthermore, I was late. I've always been physically tough, and I've rarely had a cold before, so I immediately noticed something unusual and immediately went to the OBGYN. Then, I was told that I was pregnant. Darn it. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think so. Certainly, I wanted to become a family with Aaron and have children someday. But there is an order to things. He and I have only been engaged by word of mouth. In such a situation, I wonder how parents would feel if they found out that they would have a child first. Of course, I was happy, but on the other hand, I also had a feeling that I should do something about it. With my anxiety in my heart, I decided to tell him I was pregnant. Aaron, don't be surprised. I feel like I'm pregnant. When I told him what he was going to do, his eyes widened in surprise. I wondered what he would do, but contrary to my expectations, he immediately turned to me with a big smile. You're pregnant. Really? Thank you, Janet. It was my turn to be surprised. I never thought I'd get this kind of reaction. I'm glad he's happy, and he laughs at me and says he doesn't care when I told him that it was out of order. Having a child is great. You did nothing wrong. I'll take care of it, so you don't have to worry about anything. We've always been thinking about getting married, and let's do it soon. I'll cherish Janet and my baby for the rest of my life. I was so happy about his proposal that I couldn't help but cry. With him cheerful and reliable, we can overcome any difficulties. At this moment, I really thought so. We should tell our parents about my pregnancy and our marriage. There was also a baby in the belly, and we were immediately on the move. Let's go visit your parents first. When I suggested it, he shook his head. He said that we should visit my mother first. Let me apologize to your mom first. I'll say sorry that it happened before our marriage. I'll tell my parents about it, so we can visit them later. Soon after, I told my mother about the situation and asked her to make time for us, and I decided to visit her together. When I first announced my pregnancy over the phone, my mother was surprised but very happy and cheerfully replied that she was looking forward to seeing us. And on the day of the greeting, there was unexpected trouble. He didn't show up at the appointed time. I kept calling, texting, and contacting him endlessly, but I never heard from him. What's going on? Until the day before, he seemed to be looking forward to today, as usual. I got a feeling of anxiety and a bad premonition that something has happened. And that's when I grabbed my phone to contact him again. I just got a call from him. I jumped up and answered the phone, and I was surprised by the person on the other end of the phone. It was my mother-in-law. And she was crying, and she snorted and said, "My son died." A mother-in-law with a sad voice. It was so abrupt that I couldn't keep up with my understanding. Aaron died. Why? I was so confused that I couldn't speak. Then, my mother-in-law contacted me unilaterally. So, please don't contact me anymore in the future, then. As I got myself together, I asked her many times for a detailed explanation. However, she ignored me and hung up the phone. I can't believe he's not in this world. I don't want to believe it. Next to me, my mother also looks anxious. In fact, my mother, him and I would have been having a good time by now. I never thought it would happen. I couldn't stay like this, so I got dressed and left the house. I'll never believe he's dead until I see it with my own eyes. About halfway between my house and his parents' house is the hospital where my father-in-law works. That's where I headed first. I'm sure my father-in-law will tell me more about what happened to him. I didn't know if he was in the hospital, but when I went to the hospital to see, I found out that my father-in-law was there but busy seeing patients. So I asked the receptionist to connect to him. I was told that he would come soon, and I waited for him there. My father-in-law, who showed up immediately, rolled his eyes when he heard my story. "Aaron died, did my wife say so?" "Really?" My father-in-law, who tilted his head, immediately contacted my mother-in-law. Then, a shocking fact was revealed. "He's not dead." My mother-in-law was lying to me. I thanked him and immediately headed to my parents-in-law's house. However, she did not invite me into her house as usual. "I'm sure he's in the house, but no matter how much I call him, he doesn't answer. Please open." "About Aaron, it is a lie, isn't it?" I heard from my father-in-law. "Please explain it properly." I keep calling out to her to the front door. After a while, the front door was unlocked. My mother-in-law, who appeared, turned to me with a scary face that I had never seen before. "What did you come here to do? And I have told you not to contact me anymore." The facial expressions, the attitude, the tone. I knew right away that she was rejecting me with her whole body. Why did she suddenly become so cold? When I asked the reason again, she showered me with ridiculous words. A lowly woman who grew up in a single-mother family has finally revealed her true identity. "You got pregnant, didn't you, you cunning woman? I'll never let you do what you want." My mother-in-law was terribly aggressive. What a terrible thing to say. Apparently she thinks I'm a gold digger or something. Even though she treated me so kindly, she apparently didn't seem to accept me from the beginning. No matter how much I tried to persuade him, "Aaron wouldn't give up on marrying you. Because I didn't take action sooner, now you are pregnant, I would never forgive you for this." Even after that, my mother-in-law scolded me a lot. The class of the houses is too different, or the son and the bottom woman are not proportionate. How long did it take for me to be subjected to one-sided verbal abuse? That's why he didn't come to visit my family today. From the way she talked, I realized that he was being put in a situation where he could not leave the house because of his mother. I can't do this on my own. I decided to go back and take measures for now. A few hours later, I took my paternal grandfather to visit my parents-in-law's house again. In fact, my grandfather also worked at a fairly large hospital, but when I told him about the situation, he tried to persuade me to leave it to him. It's at the request of my lovely granddaughter, and even more so if there's someone I know involved. I didn't know it at the time, but the acquaintance my grandfather said was my mother-in-law. I had no idea that they knew each other. As usual, the front door of my parents-in-law's house is tightly closed, and I can't go inside. Clearing his throat, my grandfather called out my mother-in-law's name loudly from the doorstep. "I've heard that you have been abusive to my granddaughter." After a while, my mother-in-law with a stunned expression peeked out. He has an expression that he doesn't understand what is going on. "What? Why is the teacher here?" My mother-in-law asks my grandfather with a pale face. My grandfather was furious and started raising his voice at her. My granddaughter asked me to do this. Is it true that you took my Janet and called her a lowly woman who grew up in a single-mother household? If it's true, I'll never forgive you." Her eyes widened when she found out about my relationship with her teacher. I was surprised as well. I didn't expect that the two of them had a teacher-student relationship. She seems to be very panicked, as if to say that it has become out of control. My mother-in-law, who came out as ordered by my grandfather, was made to give a detailed explanation on the spot. "Really, I'm sorry. I want my son to be happy." The mother-in-law admitted that she had condescending feelings towards single-mother families. "Marrying me won't make Aaron happy. She made that decision on her own. So she was secretly trying to get him to break up with me, but he didn't comply. He told her that he would marry me no matter what. Her mother-in-law has been planning how to somehow break us up. Around that time, I found out that I was pregnant. Therefore, he had no choice but to take hardline measures. Aaron is now leaving his phone with me and locking himself in his room. I told him to do so. I made a false promise that if he followed my instructions, would allow him to marry you. While she fed him into marrying me, she urged me to give up on our marriage. It was a vicious and ad hoc manner. It's a shame, my grandfather sighed heavily. After that, my mother-in-law was severely condemned by my grandfather. After a while, Aaron noticed something unusual and came out of the room, and together they blamed her. When he found out that my mother-in-law had verbally abused me, he lashed out at her and got furious. "Behind the scenes, you said such terrible things. Apologize to Janet." I've never seen him so angry, even though he's usually cheerful. It seems that my mother-in-law was the same, and she looks very shocked. Of course, she was also severely scolded by her husband when she returned home. "Your abuse of Janet, your lies, and your attitude towards our son, you're crazy. How can you try to prioritize your own convenience over your son's feelings and happiness? What kind of a mother are you? Shame on you." Aaron, my father-in-law, and my grandfather urged her to apologize to me again. My mother-in-law, who is blamed by everyone and is completely teary-eyed, has become pitifully small. "I'm really sorry that I made you feel uncomfortable. I'm never going to disturb you and Aaron again, I'm really sorry." I genuinely accepted her apology. Just like this, our marriage plan was safely moved forward. After that, his and my wedding took place as planned. It was a so-called maternity wedding, and my belly was getting bigger. My mother-in-law also attended the ceremony. However, I can't say that my relationship with her has been completely repaired. No matter what I say, it is true that my mother-in-law is not happy about our marriage. Of course, I don't trust my mother-in-law. I only invited her to the ceremony out of pity, and after this, he and I will have nothing to do with her. From now on, no matter what, I'll protect Janet and our child. Now that as my husband, he promised me to cut ties with his mother. My father-in-law also told me that I should do that, and he was willing to cooperate with me so that any information about us would not reach her. The only person who doesn't know anything is my mother-in-law. From now on, she will spend a lonely old age. But I don't feel sympathy. We are rather preoccupied with our future. It is the beginning of our lives as a couple and the child that is to be born. I will continue to live positively so that I can live every day with a smile on my face.